I'm sorry. Okay? I'm sorry. 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 I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, okay? Hello, friend. Welcome to I'm Sorry, Okay? A podcast where we're watching so much Degrassi. I'm LD, once again filling in for Mary, and I'm here with Paul. This week, we watched Season 3, Episode 2 of Degrassi Junior High, Can't Live With Them, Part 2. This episode was written by Yan Moore, it was directed by Kit Hood, and it originally aired on November 7th, 1988. In this episode, after hearing about the accident, no one knows what to say to Wheels, especially best friend Snake. Meanwhile, Lucy begins to neglect LD for her new boyfriend. That's pretty much it.
Oh, neglect?
Oh, definitely. I saw your notes versus my notes on this, and we had really different takes.
I can't wait to get there. So apparently, it sounds like TV Guide is already siding with you.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
well, yeah. That was it.
Yes. Wonderful. And a very, just a generally somber episode.
Yeah, man, there's not a lot to make fun of here. This is rough. So I would say note one is that this episode actually aired on the same night as the first one.
Oh.
All right. So we opened with a recap of basically everything that happened in the last episode. So I feel surely we should do a little bit of a recap since it's a two-parter. Wheels and his parents weren't getting along because his parents didn't want him to hang out with Joey anymore. Wheels hung out with him anyway. They recorded their demo together. And when he got home, the police were there. And his grandmother broke the news to him that his parents had been in an accident and were dead. In our B plot, Arthur and Yick were perpetuating cycles of abuse by choosing a small boy to pick on.
The less we say about Arthur and Yick, the better, as usual.
Always.
And I'd say from the recap, the main thing that I got, I really appreciated that they included Wheels letting out a huge
Mom, come on.
just like classic like delivery, just pitch perfect. I did not remember this from last week. So when they had it in the recap, I was like, yes.
Yeah, they definitely wanted to remind us that Wheels was fighting with his parents when they got in the accident. And that does play into this episode.
Yeah.
So we open in the hallway. Joey is at his locker. He's listening to his own demo, which is serving me personally big Love Burger in Can't Hardly Wait vibes.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like wearing the t-shirt of the band that you're in. Snake comes in and tells him that Wheels' parents called the cops. And Joey says, man, those parents are really bad news. Absolutely, J'adore. Love this dialogue. And also love that then Joey starts to go into his classroom and Snake follows him. And Joey's like, this is grade 8.
Hey.
I love that moment.
It was kind of nice to see like Snake make that mistake because I think in last week, the opposite mistake happened where Joey went to follow Wheels and Snake into their class. Am I making this up? I feel like I remember that. Yeah, I feel like I remember that happening and they sort of ragged on him and were like, hit the bricks, Joey. So it was like, I don't know, it was kind of a cute, like, if I'm remembering this right, it was a cute little sort of rebound of what we saw.
I thought what happened last week was actually that they were all talking and then Joey had to go into his classroom and we see the small boy.
Oh, yeah.
And they start making fun of him and they're like, watch out for those ankle biters.
Yeah. They generally had like a moment of sort of like making fun of Joey and what class he was in. And we get the opposite. I feel like it was to a degree in spirit.
Yeah.
An opposite vibe. And then also another thought I had about this scene was that like for a second, I almost thought like this was a pre-internet problem where Snake didn't even realize like what had happened to Wheels. But the more I thought about it, it does kind of make sense that Wheels just wouldn't even have reached out to Snake. Like to me, if I'm imagining like texting, like I would maybe text a friend like, yo, like my parents didn't call the cops on me, but like I can't talk. I don't know. Like I could see that maybe being a text, but like I could totally 1000% seeing it not being a phone call you would make and Wheels not like calling Snake to tell him this happened.
Yeah, I mean, as we've discussed in previous episodes, in particular when LD's dad is in the hospital, I love to not tell people when horrible stuff happens to me.
Sure.
So, so I probably wouldn't have called Snake either.
Yeah, I guess I had like sort of a mixed feeling about it. And like, I feel like a writer could have done either, like could have gone with either option on a modern show. But
It's
like
true.
in this episode, like, yeah, it totally makes sense that Wheels just wouldn't have reached out to Snake.
Yeah, I wonder if like this were Degrassi next class, things would have
Mm-hmm.
been different. Like that information would have been circulated differently.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's to say?
Not an iPhone in sight,
Oh, thank God.
just living in the moment.
So, moving into the next scene, which before we start, I would just like to give a shout out to what I believe would have been Mary's either look of the week or who is she this week? Because we have a sick beret girl that's in the background who crosses into the foreground just before Raditch comes in and you know breaks this news. She's in a lavender beret and she's got this wide black and white striped shirt and a light denim jacket.
The beret girl legacy lives on.
Yeah, I just felt like in Mary's absence, it's my duty to point out a beret girl.
Gotta shout it out.
Yeah. Okay. So after we've seen Beret Girl take her seat, Joey is once again asking Arthur to get out of the seat that he thinks is his, even though we've established in the last.
Is he asking him? It's a very like high pressure ask situation.
He's telling. He's telling. You're right. I chose my words. I was being a little too nice to Joey. But, you know, Arthur explains to him that Raditch told him to sit there and Joey makes him move anyway. Raditch comes in, makes him move again. I wonder if we're going to keep having this or if this is the last time that they're going to have this back and forth on the seat.
He definitely doesn't even like pretend to have time for this shit.
Do you love this little weird bit of music when Joey has had to get up and change seats? They've played it both times, both weeks.
It's like an old school Disney movie, like about Davy Crockett or something, where he's like forging music or something.
It's a very strange choice, but I really like that they're starting
It's
to
good.
introduce these sort of incidental tracks.
Okay, so this is like this happened last week in last week's episode.
Yeah.
Looks like we got a leitmotif on our hands, baby. Good.
I
for
really
us.
liked it. I was like, wow, it's like a real show.
I love that you picked up on that. That's great. I definitely did not catch that on first viewing.
So yeah, Raditch tells the class that Wheels' parents were killed by a drunk driver last night. I actually think he's really good at breaking this news. He tells them
Totally.
that only family and very close friends are going to be allowed at the funeral. And then he starts encouraging them to take up a collection for flowers. And he puts Alex in charge because he was the treasurer. And he puts some money in too, and then tells Alex to update him tomorrow about the money raise. And I actually just thought this was a really nice little bit because they really included like the full conversation.
The whole scene is good because we get the like sort of lighthearted, like icebreaker moment of like Joey and Arthur and Raditch sort of like throwing down the hammer on like Joey's shenanigans. And then I'd say they pretty smoothly transition into like more serious kind of conversation. And just from a writing standpoint, I thought the way they did that was really cool. And I also love that at the beginning, you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, Joey is listening to his own demo in his little earbuds. And I just like something about the little slow, dramatic removal of his earbuds when he learns this information. It's like a newscaster taking off his glasses dramatically. I like a lot of things in this scene.
Yeah, I thought it was really great. I think that Raditch is finally doing his job, which is nice to see.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it just kind of goes to show you that like when the chips are down, like Mr. Raditch actually can carry out that pastoral duty that he has. I think he reached out to Steph when she was really depressed. He's doing a good job of talking to these teens about death of their friend's family, and he's showing them what to do and kind of leading by example and being like, okay, so even if you're not going to the funeral, it's a really good thing if you all send some flowers. And I thought like, Wow, way to go, Raditch. The bar is
Yeah,
so
good
low
for
for
him.
you that
Yeah,
you once again cleared it.
I love a good low bar.
Me too. I also love to clear a low bar.
Oh my god, it's so satisfying.
I did my dishes yesterday and I was just like, ooh,
Incredible.
it honestly was. And I texted
Yeah.
3 people to tell them. And they all were like, I'm so proud of you.
Yes.
They'd been haunting me. They'd been really haunting me. I've had the house to
Uh.
myself for 2 weeks. So there was a pile up.
Speaking of being haunted, should we talk about this cemetery scene?
Woof. Okay. So yeah. I mean, there's actually several segues to speaking of being haunted with this episode, because we do actually get
True.
sort of a dream haunting later.
Ooh,
But
yeah, your haunted dishes have really set the tone.
amazing. So at Wheels' parents' funeral, what is he, a priest? A clergyman of some kind is giving,
a
in my
guy.
opinion, like a very over enunciated kind of speech about death, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering, did you also think it was weird that like not only are his teachers there, but a bunch of people we've never seen him interact with? Like, who invited Liz to the funeral?
Yes, so they like
Specifically.
in the previous scene, Raditch is saying only family and close friends, but then yeah, it really felt like they just sort of dumped half the cast like into the scene, maybe to fill it out or something. But it feels like it sort of contradicts like something. Like he sort of interacted with the twins. Like when
Not
I hear
really.
family and close friends, I'm imagining family and Joey and Snake.
I would
Maybe Spike.
tenuously put Spike. Yes, I would put
Yeah.
Spike in there, maybe because we've seen them interact.
Yeah.
But
A very my whole note.
I wouldn't put Miss Avery. That's all I'm saying.
No,
Like she's gonna spend
yeah.
that whole funeral just touching everyone's shoulders.
Watch out. Yeah, I found this scene to just be generally awkward. I did not listen to what Pastor Mann had to say.
Pastor Man.
We get like a brief conceptual moment of like the kids grappling with death, and the twins are like talking about like why Wheels isn't crying, and then we sort of get a couple of shots of like Snake and Joey where it seems like maybe they're wondering the same thing but they like can't articulate it or something. I don't know, it's just weird.
Yeah, and Spike's talking about how she's scared about her own mom dying. Wheels and his grandparents leave together. He grabs a flower off of one of the caskets. Like it's very like, I mean, it does the job as far as like
Yeah.
funerals are a fucking bummer, man. Like, and
Yeah,
this
true.
this really did what it says on the box.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like we often talk about like sort of the realism that goes into the show, like the scene where they steal the car. A lot of the like musical elements to the show are like they really try and like focus on the realism no matter how uncomfortable that is. So like you said, I mean, I guess that was what was going into the scene, but unlike those other things I mentioned, it didn't really work for me.
I mean, none of his friends are talking to him at all. Like they're all there and then they all just leave. And, you know, I mean, later he addresses the fact that no one's talking to him, but it's very noticeable to me in this scene. Like no one's comforting him. They're all just speculating on why he's not crying.
It could speak to the realism of a scene like this where they just don't know what to do. Maybe
A bunch of teens
you know.
aren't going to understand why someone might not cry at a funeral or, you know, the different
yeah,
ways
like-
that people deal with death.
Like that level of emotional maturity is like difficult to reach, and I think, you know, I'm sure there's plenty of adults who haven't like totally figured all of these things out, and like that's perfectly fine. Like it's confusing.
Yeah. So in our next scene, Wheels is at home and the phone rings and his grandma answers and she's like, "It's Joey again."
Again.
Again is really doing all the heavy lifting in this scene. Grandma tells Joey that Wheels isn't ready to talk to anyone yet. And I think Joey, being a little bit of a weenie, but still really wanting to be supportive, is just like, "Well, do you know when he will be?" Which, like, no, dude, he doesn't have his grief schedule yet. Like, let me just pull out his like planner for the week. But his grandma hangs up the phone and she tells Wheels that his friends sound nice and that it's once again like we're addressing that he's not crying. She says it's okay to cry. He says he doesn't want to. But then we move into what I think is the realest part, which is that Wheels has some really legitimate questions for his grandma. He wants to know where he's going to live. She thinks that he's probably going to have to come live with them, his grandparents. And he's basically just kind of implying that like where they live sounds like a retirement community of some kind. He's like, there's only old people there. It's really far from school. And then he asks if his grandparents can come live at his house. And they're just like, no, because his grandpa is sick and he needs to live near the hospital, which also I'm just kind of like, Jesus, like how much stuff is like happening in this world. And I think his grandma seems really flustered. She's just kind of like, oh, we'll talk to the social worker. He doesn't want to do that. Like he doesn't want to go into foster care. I think he's feeling really understandably terrible. And his grandma's like not doing an amazing job because she also doesn't really know what to do here either. And also she has no way of knowing if the state or I guess the province is going to be like, actually you're not the appropriate caretakers for this like young person because you're like so sick that you have to live by a hospital. Like
yeah, they showed I think they showed the grandpa in the cemetery scene and he looked weak and he was in a like wheelchair, and so like all of this sort of tracks for what we had just seen. I feel like a lot of this has to be extra complicated because Wheels is adopted and he says something, he like sort of has an outburst about how he doesn't want to live with fake parents, which felt like very specific language to me. It's like they really went out of their way to make this situation as messed up as possible.
Yeah, man. It's a bummer that there seems to be no aunts, uncles, cousins. There's really nobody else. So it's going to have to be these grandparents who don't seem super equipped.
No, which they probably couldn't be. I also like that we get, after like Joey hangs up the phone, we get a good shot of him just sort of like wistfully looking over at the recording equipment. Like it's sad. Like I can totally see like, I don't know how many days have passed since they recorded this demo, but it couldn't have been more than a week. And so it's like, you're like looking at, he like probably invested all this time into just acquiring this stuff and like getting it all set up, and they record the demo and he has all these like, whether they're realistic, like thoughts of what's going to come of it or not, it's just like he was excited about like this happening. And then it's like just a total 180 and he's got to deal with that too.
He's also probably just looking at it as like, this is a reminder of a time that was simpler. We recorded this demo and didn't even know what was happening at the exact kind of moment that we were recording this.
True. Yeah. It would have been happening at that. Yeah.
Yeah, so moving on to even worse stuff, we get a patented Degrassi creepy dream sequence where Wheels' parents come home from the movie and he's like, I thought you were dead. And they're like, we are dead.
Fucking spooky.
Things are getting scary. And he is just schwitzing in his bed. He is very sweaty. And he wakes up and I think just goes right back to sleep. But poor kid. He is going through it. The teens are going through it in this episode.
It's rough. Also, I'm gonna make a note here. We received an email at imsorryokpod@gmail.com that I thought I should read.
We got an email?
It's from Mary. So Mary wrote into the podcast.
Mary!
I'm sorry, okpod@gmail.com, and asked, well, first she stated, what a season opener. Wheels' dream sequence in this episode was okay, but it would have been cool if they went full horror with zombie parents or a smashed up car in the living room. I have to know, how would you rank the Degrassi dreams that we've seen so far? The list of options reads:
Stephanie's my God, Bridge, of course there's options.
Stephanie's bridge dream, Caitlin's gay dream, Joey's fight mare, Lucy's Colby flashback, and Wheels and the Wheelers' We Are Dead remix.
We Are Dead remix. Oh my God. Okay. First of all, thank you, listener, for writing in. It is truly a treat to actually have something in our inbox that I have not checked in so many months because I don't expect for there to be anything in it.
Yeah.
Oh, who could have predicted? This is a very good question. I kind of think that my favorite is Caitlin's lesbian dream.
I honestly,
Because then aren't they all just like chanting like she's a lesbian?
I know, it's true. Heard the rumors.
She's a lesbian. I heard the rumors.
She's a gay. Gay.
I mean, that's just like that's a dream I'm having all the time. So I guess like I would rank that at the top. I actually think Wheels' parents' remix was like somewhere in the middle.
I'm gonna go with you that the lesbian dream sequence, which makes it sound totally different than what it is, was like top tier. I just remember like pointing out that like the way they shot it was really cool. It had a very specific like sort of tonal effect to it, and it still like sort of devolved into like being weird. Like it started off normal and then got weird, which I thought was cool too.
I love Joey's Frightmare, not
Yeah.
Frightmare, Frightmare. That's definitely up there, and it's sick that it basically just comes true.
Yep.
Which I guess is kind of scary because if all the nightmares that you had came true, the world would be so scary. I think I would put Lucy's Colby dream at the bottom because it bummed me out a lot.
Yeah, it's not fun.
And
no one wants to see it.
Yeah, and it was just a flashback to stuff that had already happened that was bad.
Yep.
Which I guess is often what nightmares are. But I didn't personally enjoy it. So
all right, well, excellent. I'm glad that we could come to this conclusion. Congratulations, Caitlin's gay dream. It's kind of hard to say. And thanks, Mary, for writing in.
If you have any questions or theories, please drop us a line. So the next morning outside of school, Nancy and Kathleen are duking it out for the dictatorship. I mean, presidency. Nancy is yelling that she is responsible, and Kathleen is yelling that she is a strong authority. And in case you're wondering, I would personally be voting third party on this one. How about you?
Well, Kathleen's got some strong baby cop energy.
Cop.
Baby.
Cop.
I guess I would vote for Nancy. Yeah, I mean, I probably just wouldn't vote.
Great. So, yeah, Lucy's new boyfriend. I don't know. We'll call him that for now.
I have thoughts on this, but okay.
Maybe stalker. Pulls up into school in a splatter painted car driven by his third wheel friend, and Lucy gets out in my look of the week.
Nice.
She looks like she is headed straight for a Sergeant Pepper photo shoot, or perhaps a like 90s Michael Jackson video shoot. You know, that red jacket. Yeah, I think he had that exact one.
Yeah.
Who's to say really, but it is my look of the week because honestly, it is all that stood out to me. And
I mean, it's an unbelievably strong look.
I feel like I don't give Lucy the credit that she deserves. Week in and week out, she is serving us the strongest looks. And week in and week out, I'm like, right, but would I wear it? No. And it's like, well, that's not what look of the week is always for. Sometimes look of the week is really just about appreciating what's there.
I agree.
So, LD, a definite heterosexual.
Yes, I am John Abby's heterosexual ex-boyfriend.
Comes up and responds to Lucy having a new boyfriend by saying, hubba, hubba, hubba. To which I would say, I can't wait until LD one day stumbles upon, I don't know, like reruns of the L Word on HBO and never looks back. So I know you had some feelings about Lucy and Paulie.
Yeah, the way that she was. So I think Lucy says to LD,
It's like he was waiting for me.
something about that line just made me feel creepy, but also I guess it could have been a coincidence. It just had stalker vibes to me. I don't know.
I think let's put this down as like our red flag of the week. Like I feel like we're often finding red flags, and I think they're planting a seed because next week is a Lucy episode.
Uh-huh. Oh dear.
So we're gonna find out, because I don't think I see anything ending well because Lucy cannot have nice things. So I guess.
Well, before
Red
we go
flag.
any further with predicting that this man is terrible, or this person is terrible, I'm gonna go ahead and call it Paul as my look of the week.
Oh,
Love that we have the same look of the week in the same scene, and they're interacting with each other
in the same shot.
in the same shot. They are like right there. And I mean, just because this is a two-parter, I feel like it's only fitting that Paul gets a double shout out since he was my look of the week last week too. I mean, I feel like I just love this, like, I call it a turtleneck in my notes, but it like
It's more of a mock neck.
Yeah, it's just got a lot going on in the neck area, which I think looks good. He's got like these gray dress pants on. He just looks good. He looks like he's ready to pick a girl up on the street and drop her off.
I mean,
At her location. Okay.
He looks like he is ready to abduct a teen.
Well, I mean, maybe we'll find out more next week.
I mean, who also among us can resist picking someone with our name as our look of the week?
I mean, yeah, it's not fair.
One cannot resist. So Lucy tells LD that she and Paul are going to go to the movies on Saturday, and LD says that they were supposed to go see a movie together on Saturday. Lucy tells LD, she's like, "Oh, I can tell Paul I can't go." But I think this is where you and I are going to disagree here. I think Lucy is basically saying it in a way that she's absolutely hoping that LD is just going to be like, "No, you should just go," and not like saying it in a way that's actually genuinely, "I'm going to tell Paul I can't go." Like, I think Lucy is very much like whatever the new shiny object around her is what she's going for. She is absolutely down to ditch her buddy. And LD is just kind of probably not wanting to be a little weenie baby about it and be like, "Okay, then go tell him that you can't hang out with him because you're going to hang out with me." Because honestly, who would do that?
Yeah.
It's like when you're going to hang out with some people and you run into someone and they're like, "Oh, can I come with?" You don't want them to.
Yeah.
But you're going to be like, "Yeah, okay." And I think that, like, you know what? I'm ready to introduce this concept. I think that LD may be Lucy's medium friend.
Tell me more.
I believe, right, that every one of us, we have big friends, we have medium friends, and we have small friends. Our small friends are our, like, you know, the people you see at a party, you see them out, maybe you know them from college, whatever. You're not calling them to hang out. You're not even texting them. You might like some of their pictures on like Instagram or something. Maybe you're giving them like a fire emoji react if they post a selfie, but it doesn't go any further than that. You've got your big friends. Those are your best friends, right? They're like, someone invites you to a party, you're immediately calling them to come with. Or like, you know what I mean? Like, you know how everyone's got like a friend where it's like, well, if you invite that guy, you have to invite the other one because they come as a set. That's your big friend.
Big friend energy.
Yeah, big friend energy. I think we're big friends. But
absolutely.
But basically, a medium friend, you don't dislike them, you don't talk shit about them, you really like hanging out with them, and you do hang out with them, right? Like you text them, you call them, you talk, but they're kind of like, they're not your inner circle. They're like just outside of that. You maybe don't integrate them into your groups. They're not like, as we're all coming out of the pandemic, they're not like the first person you're calling when like restaurants are opening back up. You're maybe going to call them in like 4 to 6 weeks after you've seen all your big friends.
we have LD here, like just kind of holding down that middle medium friend, like space.
Yeah, and I think if I may go into it even further, I do believe that Lucy is her big friend. But I think that LD is not Lucy's big friend. I think LD is Lucy's medium friend.
This feels like the logic is sound. I see no holes in this argument that you present.
Thank you. And listen, as a person who is, I think, almost exclusively a medium friend, I can call it when I see it.
Have you been in LD's shoes before in this scene?
Have I fucking ever? Jesus Christ. Like, honestly, I think there was a good period of time where like all of my friends, especially my like much hotter, much more femme friends, were like pairing off with people. And like it's just like when I walked around, like the Charlie Brown music just like followed me, like where. Like it was just like you know, like
okay. I had a single sentence buffered with a comma written down to describe my feelings about this scene. Just saying that I thought it was great that they seamlessly adjusted their plans. So I appreciate your input on the like full spectrum of social dynamics going on here. I appreciate being illuminated.
Yeah, I mean, also I would say, and like, you know, no offense or anything, but much like you had to remind me gently during the Trust Me episode that I was not a boy attending boy sleepovers, I'm just gonna go ahead and remind you that you have not been a girl and friends with other girls, because that shit is it is like a rough and tumble world. There are secret codes and languages that no one knows. There are like dialects for each little group, and like someone being like, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, actually I will tell that boy that I definitely want to hang out with instead of you, that I can't hang out with him instead of you. Like the kind of social norms would dictate that you have to then be like, no, just go hang out with the boy, you can tell me about it after. And it's like, I don't want to hear about it after. You blew me off.
Yes, I feel like I have a lot of experience, like just being like casually social with women. And I feel like I've probably been in this situation where like somebody just ends up with other plans that don't have anything to do with me. And I'm sort of like, okay, whatever. And it's like not a big deal because yes, as you said, I'm not a true member of the club and I'll never know. And that's okay. I honestly, I don't, it sounds like I don't want to know. It sounds like that shit sucks.
Yeah, it's it also never stops. It never ever ends. So speaking of things that never end, we're now inside of school and Joey catches up with Wheels in the stairwell and puts his hand on his shoulder. Wheels immediately is just kind of like, don't touch me.
We get a blistering
"Don't touch me."
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna pause really quick here. I kind of wish we had been tracking these because I feel like there have been really good like "don't touch me's" from Liz when Joey was being a creep.
Don't you touch me, Joey. Don't you ever touch me.
I think Spike said it to Caitlyn when she and Caitlyn were feuding. We've gotten a "don't touch me" from Spike. Just great stuff. I love a good "don't touch me."
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of good "don't touch me's," and it's too bad. There's a lot of things we haven't been tracking up to now, and I think there's no harm in us going back and maybe retroactively having a little look-see. But yeah, so Joey hands Wheels a copy of their demo tape. Wheels immediately throws it against the radiator and it breaks, which is ice fucking cold. And I believe like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but are we not in the same stairwell where Vula dropped her infamous promo calling Steph a baby?
A selfish baby.
This is like the stairwell vortex. This is where Joey got like challenged to a fight by Dwayne. We got the selfish baby line from Vula. I think this might be the drug stairwell where Joey sells drugs off of his skateboard.
Bolivian blue?
Is it not?
Drug stairwell is, I think, probably the same stairwell, but on like the ground floor.
On the bottom.
I think
I
this
just feel
is
like
where
there's-
Caitlin and Spike had a standoff. Basically, it's the
Yep.
standoff stairwell.
It is a big,
what it
like, yeah,
is.
there's a lot of like kind of heavy energy in this stairwell.
Yeah.
Joey doesn't flinch when Wheels like smashes the demo either. He like just kind of takes it on the chin, which like cool. Like
I
mean,
know,
that's-
honestly-
it's a very cool reaction.
For like the first time ever, Joey is really doing the work as a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
So Wheels tells Joey he doesn't want the tape. He doesn't want to be in the band.
Woof.
You know, and Joey's just like, I'm just trying to help. And Wheels is like, I don't want your help. And man, rough.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's a good scene. Just a good stairwell scene. A lot happens.
Yeah, and it takes us pretty seamlessly into the grade 9 classroom. I think two randos are just kind of talking about who they're going to vote for, and they don't know who either candidate is. Again, I love this like filler dialogue that we sometimes
Sure.
get. Just love it. I love how it's someone just being like, I don't know who either of these people are. And it's like, I thought it was just Degrassi students stayed at Degrassi. I guess I didn't realize that maybe other grade 9s have had to transplant into Degrassi too
Oh,
from other
okay.
schools.
That-
Who won't
that
know
could
who
be an
Kathleen and
explanation.
Nancy are. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Alexa comes in with world-renowned himbo Simon, and she tells the whole class that Wheels is back at school. And then kind of this whole group just starts discussing whether or not to bring up his parents. Some dudes say that they won't. LD is saying like it really helps to talk about it. I think her line on this is very strange though. She's like, oh, really? Like when my mom died, it really helped to talk about it. Like it helped to share. It felt like I was sharing the pain. And then someone else is like, well, I don't want to share the pain.
Yeah.
But it does seem like a really realistic way that they're all talking about it in different ways.
Yeah.
Alexa is just like, oh, I just hope he doesn't cry because then I'll cry. And then everyone kind of turns and Wheels is at the door. Ooh. Mr. Garcia, Degrassi's resident tall person, greets Derek and says it's good to have him back. He says that he's available for extra help anytime, which I think like good job, teacher.
I thought that like you said, we get like a pretty good like kind of discussion on more social dynamics around like death and like kind of just how to deal with that with interaction. But then I also like that like Mr. Garcia just rolls in and like diffuses the situation. I think he does a really good job of just like modeling like behavior, and he just says, it's good to have you back. I'm around if you need me. And it feels like he's like all at the same time, like reassuring, but not being intrusive. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's another scene in this episode that I think just sort of has a really nice life cycle, and then it like moves on.
Yeah, I think it's really, really good. And it just shows different people's responses and even like maybe the different stages of grief through
Yeah.
different people. Because
Yeah.
I suppose even if it wasn't your parents, if it's a friend that you know, someone you've grown up with in school, you're going to have known their parents at least a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah, so Will sits down, the lesson begins, and everyone kind of keeps looking over at him, which is
Like an
Also very
awkward
real,
stare. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
like Snake looks particularly bewildered here, just like,
It's
oh
so-
God.
So
Ugh.
awkward.
Oh, I feel so bad, honestly, for both of them, because like there has been times when like I don't know what to say to somebody, and so I really vibed with this. But then also, like I'm sure there's been times where people don't know what to say to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like,
Yeah.
and it sucks for everyone, but I think it definitely sucks the most for Wheels.
Well, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, we move into the cafeteria and we get an update on what's going on with Spike, which like this worried me actually. She's literally just having a juice box for lunch, and she's talking about how she's on a diet and she's trying to lose the weight, and just like
Yes.
really bums me out. And Liz is just like, you look great, but like that's all really that gets said, and then they move on. And she's talking about how she's happy to be back at school and it makes her feel like a normal kid. And then she starts talking about the fact that like she watches, like Liz is basically like, who's watching Emma? And she says that this girl from her prenatal class watches Emma during the day and she's a waitress. So then Spike watches her baby at night. And I'm just like, Jesus, she must be so
Yeah.
exhausted. Like, I can't believe that she gets such good grades because everything is
Yeah.
just being placed on her. And it's very strange to me that, you know, Shane is listening to this whole thing, but he doesn't interact with them. He's just overhearing because Liz starts asking, well, why don't you get a babysitter? And Spike's just like, I don't have any money.
Mhm.
And so Shane's listening to the whole thing. And I think you can see that he's feeling guilt, but also feeling like, okay, I have to do something. And I think we've seen so far in the last episode and this one, like, he wants to be involved. He wants to help, but his parents are just really holding him back from doing the right thing. And there
True.
really is only so much that a 14-year-old kid can do on his own.
When I first saw this scene, my ears kind of focused on the word babysitter when they're like zooming in on Shane.
Yeah.
So I kind of thought that, right? Like, so I like, part of me thought they were going to go in that weird direction of like referring to the father of a child as like a babysitter. Which when we get to the end of the episode, we see that's not where they were going. But yeah, just kind of what you were saying, like, we kind of see that he is in tune with this conversation. He does seem like he's trying to like pay attention and figure out like what his place in the situation is. So I don't know, good for him.
Yeah, but it's strange to me that Spike's mom hasn't like insisted that his parents do something, because really,
Yeah.
legally, I think they do have an obligation to be paying child support.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like,
It's all weird.
because the two parents are minors, I think that their parents then would be in charge of like negotiating arrangements, and it's
Right.
strange to me. I mean, maybe it's more that Spike's mom doesn't make a lot of money, she can't afford a lawyer, but it just seems to me that once the baby was born and Spike decided to keep her, that some parent would have made some contact with another parent. Sure. Anyway, whatever.
No idea.
Yeah, whatever. We pan over to Wheels, and of course, we get a Miss Avery shoulder touch. As we kind of like, we zoom out, and Joey and Snake are talking about him from a few tables over, and I kind of like the way that panned out. Snake feels really bad because he can't even look at Wheels, and BLT comes up and asks if they want to shoot baskets. I don't know. Whatever. They're kind of like, don't you feel bad? And he's like, yeah, that's why I'm gonna go shoot baskets. Like, he's just
they get really weird to BLT, which I like. I
BLT
feel like
doesn't hang out with them. Why is he required to sit around like sitting Shiva for Wheels' parents?
Well, and I just like that he's like, I mean, yeah, I'm also like feeling this, so I'm trying to invite you guys to shoot baskets so we could just like chill out and not focus on this so much. I don't know, we don't get a lot of resolution there, but it feels like Snake maybe feels a little embarrassed for the way he like talks to BLT in this scene. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and obviously Snake is doing some pretty heavy projection, because he's really talking to himself when he's talking to BLT, because he's kind of saying he should be doing more, he should feel bad. And that seems very obvious, but so Wheels leaves the cafeteria, and he looks over at Joey and Snake really angrily as he's leaving, and you can really feel his anger building and building and building with each scene. You can see that at first he looks a little bit dejected, but he's seeing everyone stare at him and talk about him, and he's getting kind of upset, and then
it's gotta be so weird.
And then he's leaving the cafeteria, and you can see he's a little more angry. So yeah, outside the school, Arthur and Yick are talking about Arthur being rich now. I honestly don't give a shit, but I did
why is this here?
Yeah, I like, this could have been a deleted scene. We don't need this. But I would like to say that I did finally do a quick search. 1 million Canadian dollars in 1988 is worth $1,975,348.51 now. So almost double.
So around 2 million.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, almost doubled. So that's a lot.
I mean, good for them.
Yeah, way to go, Arthur's mom. Maybe she's finally gonna invest in like a laminator for her pamphlets.
Oh yeah.
Or like there are like folding machines that I know people get for zines.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, think of how much she can like up her pamphlet game
Oh my
going
God.
forward.
She could spring for the color laser printer is all I'm saying. So yeah, in the hall, Liz and Spike are talking about probably kind of nothing. They're just kind of doing this weird chatter of like, oh yeah, that'd be so fun. No idea what they're talking about. Shane just comes up and hands her an envelope of cash like he's in the mob.
Ching ching, baby.
Right? So he says it's half of his allowance, and he's just kind of like, I wish I could give you more, but I need to use the rest of it for bus fares. And I'm just kind of thinking, like, your parents give you an allowance and then make you use your allowance for your bus fare to go to school. Your parents suck. They suck for a lot of other reasons, but like, come on. And then I'm also like, does Toronto not have some kind of like under 18 like pass for kids to go to school
Seriously.
on
I mean,
public
maybe it's
transit?
just discounted, so then when you're just working off an allowance budget, it's still
Maybe
expensive.
I don't know. Torontonians, if that is what one would call you, please let us know. But yeah, so he's talking about how he's going to get a full-time job and he's going to pay her child support basically, and he's like doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He's doing literally everything that is within his power to do.
He seems like he's feeling confident. He's just sort of like, no problem. I just kind of liked that.
But I like that he's not trying to like weasel his way in. He's not trying to get Spike to do anything she doesn't want to do. He's not like, oh, I want to come over. Or, you know, like he's not like, oh, you should leave Emma with me. He's just kind of like, here's what I heard you talking about. You need money. You want money. Here's money. Like he's not trying to be any more involved than she wants him to be. And I don't know. I do think that he's always just had a little bit of like an air of him that's like, I don't know what the fuck to do. And It feels like he's finally figuring that out. I know that he was a pretty big tool last season, but he was also, again, a 14-year-old child.
Totally. It feels like he's maybe come out on the other end of like trying to figure all this stuff out, and he's like feeling good about it.
Yeah. So at Wheels' locker, Joey tries to talk to Wheels again, and you know, he's basically just like, I'm your friend. And Wheels is mad that Snake isn't talking to him. Joey's, I think, really trying here. Like he's really trying to help.
Oh yeah.
Like he's not explaining away Snake or anything, but he is just like, you know, he doesn't really know what to say. Wheels is like, no one does. No one's talking to me. Everyone's just like staring at me. And then he kind of snaps and he tells Joey that it's all his fault because he made Wheels' parents mad at him. He convinced him to sneak out. You know, he says that he should have gone to the movies with his parents and this never would have happened. And while he's doing this, he's like starting to push Joey and he's pushing him into a wall. And he's like pushing him and then and kind of like into a corner. It's really, really hard to watch, I think. And he just kind of keeps saying like this never would have happened. And Joey tries to tell him like, you know, if you'd gone too, like you'd be dead. Like, you know, and Wheels just basically is like, well, I'd rather be dead. Like, and he starts hitting Joey and telling him that he wishes he was dead. And then he's just kind of like, he kind of freezes, he stops, he realizes what he's doing. And he's like, I'm going crazy. And then he just leaves. We get a very small moment from Caitlin, who looks over at Joey and is like, are you okay?
I wanted to say we get a brief Rick Monroe memorial locker punch as Wheels storms off.
Rick Monroe memorial locker punch. That is the best way I've ever heard you describe anything.
This whole scene is like tough to watch. Like Wheels is just like tweaking out. He's like losing it. And like it's not even a fight. It's just like he's just beating Joey up. But even that is like sort of awkward. Like it's all just a lot.
They're child actors. So obviously they're not going to like do real punching or whatever. So the punching just looks pathetic. And like but Joey's just taking it. He's just like, he's not saying anything. He's not arguing with him. He's trying to reason with him a little bit, but he's mostly just really letting Wheels like feel his feelings.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't even really need to be like so realistic or even just so like violent. Like I think it's another thing where I feel like the awkwardness works for it. It's just like nobody knows what's going on in the situation, not even Wheels. Like it feels like he really is, like he's just not sure why he's even doing what he's doing in the moment, but it's his only like sort of way to release whatever he's feeling.
Yeah,
Like, that's how
Yeah, he's kind of gone from depression to anger in terms of the stages of grief.
Mhm.
And he's going to stick with anger for a little while. And that's
Love
usually a stage that a lot of people stick at
Yeah.
for a while. So in the next scene, Wheels is visiting his parents' graves when his grandma shows up, and he's just kind of like, "What are you doing here?" Which is sort of like, "What the fuck do you think, dude? Like, why does anyone visit a grave? Like, no offense, but come on." And she's like, "The same as you." They have like kind of a little heart to heart, and he tells her that his parents were fighting when they died, and she reassures him that they didn't die because they were fighting, which I think is a good thing to remember. Maybe other kids watching this would need that kind of reminder.
Totally strong moral.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to say about this scene.
No, I mean, yeah, it's just more discussion about death, which I think is always important to like present and like model, either like, on TV or just in our own lives. Like everybody goes through this. And so I feel like it's just sort of like a strong scene to sort of wrap up everything that Wheels has been going through.
It reminds me of how Mr. Rogers did a few episodes about people dying, because he felt like it was really important that even from a young age, children are familiar with death and understand what it's going to feel like. And I think this is holding that space for like a young adult audience.
Totally. Yes. Like the same kind of, but for a different age group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back outside of the school, Nancy and Kathleen are handing out flyers. I mean, these two are really going for it. I don't really care.
Heating up.
But like not that much. Like where are the kisses for votes is all I'm saying.
I mean, I have nothing to say. That no one's willing to go there.
I wish they would.
Well, the election is supposedly the day of this scene, but I don't think we get anything else out of that.
I don't think we get a result. Maybe in the next episode.
I can't wait.
But we go inside and Joey's at his locker and Wheels comes to find him and he apologizes. And Joey's basically is like,
anytime you want to beat me up, that's what I'm here for.
I also just think like what a sweet like sentiment. I don't know. Like it's just like, listen, I'm here for you even during the really tough, ugly shit. I'm not just here for us to play in a band together and go to the arcade. Like I'm here for you through anything.
We get a lot of like Joey sort of like sympathy, like I don't know how I want to say it, but like we just get a lot of like good, positive, like sort of emotion for Joey in this episode.
Yeah, for sure. And he's made Wheels another copy of the demo. I think that's really sweet. Like I think he knows in his heart that like Wheels didn't really mean to smash it. He just was upset. And then Wheels tells Joey that he's really scared. And I love that Wheels is finally being honest with his friends. He's saying what he feels, but also like, I'm glad that he did it when he was ready. And, no one was trying to force him into anything, or that he wasn't forced into talking about his feelings when he wasn't ready. And we end on a big hug between Wheels and Joey.
True friendship.
Yeah.
You love to see it.
We do love to see it. I think Joey's a really good pal in this episode.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of needed that from Joey, because really all we've seen from him up until now is just him being just a really obnoxious pal who gets people into trouble. And I think it could have been really easy for Wheels to be like, this is all your fault. I was fighting with my parents because of you, and Joey being like, it's not my fault. Like, and having them like get in a big fight where then, they're not talking anymore and they drag that out through the season, or, Wheels really resents him.
Not to like sort of push this even further and get a little too lengthy about it, but do you feel like Joey being held back a grade previous to this might have had something to do with sort of this change in his attitude, and like sort of like maybe a humbling experience where he realizes that like he can't like act towards people in the same way as he was, and like that sort of paved way for him to be able to sort of deal with this in a more mature way.
That is a very interesting hypothesis, and one I would really kind of like to track through the season, because I wonder if we see a bit more emotional maturity from him.
We've got our eye on you, Mr. Jeremiah.
Joey M. Jeremiah. M stands for maturity.
Can't relate.
I related to BLT. I think for me, my skill set in moving through the stages of grief is just doing other things to keep my mental energy focused and flowing if it feels like it's at an impasse where nothing else can really, come of focusing on it.
I think in this episode, I related to Joey. I think when my friends are going through a tough time, I don't always know what to say, but I try anyway, and I try to reach out and wait until they're ready to talk. Some have called me aggressively helpful, and I'm going to go with that. So, friend, what did we learn today?
I learned that there's not really a right or wrong way to interact with someone who is experiencing trauma and loss. We get a lot of discussion throughout the episode of what should be said or not said. We even get some decent modeling from Mr. Garcia and Gma Wheeler. But we also see that sometimes this stuff can just get messy, and it's not necessarily anybody's fault. It just goes that way sometimes, and you have to be ready to roll with it.
I think I learned that people grieve in different ways. And even though a lot of people seem put off by the fact that Wheels wasn't crying, but he was moving through the stages of grief, and he stayed put at anger for a little while, but I think he will move to acceptance eventually. But there's just a lot of different ways that people experience grief, whether it's loss of a parent or even grief in a different way of, if you lose a friendship or have a breakup or something like that, someone moves away. There's just a lot of different ways to respond to that. And I think that this episode showed us that, because it didn't send the singular message that by the end, Wheels had to cry, and that's how we knew that he was really sad.
Totally.
And I think that was really important.
You can listen to I'm Sorry, Okay, a Degrassi podcast on Acast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy what we're doing here at I'm Sorry, Okay, be sure to give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts.
We love them. Both ratings and reviews. That's it for Can't Live With Them Part 2. Join us next week for Big Girl Now, a title I've got a lot of grievances with already.